Welcome to 30, Flirty, and Panicking, your go-to podcast for embracing the unexpected and building a life you love. I'm Kelsey, and in this week's episode, we're sitting down with New York Times bestselling author and women's health expert, Dr. Mindy Pelz, to talk all about her brand new book, out now, Age Like a Girl. And honestly, I knew that this conversation was going to alter my perspective about menopause and the chapters surrounding menopause. But what I think I didn't fully appreciate was that it was also going to completely alter my view of what it means to age like a woman. And I'm talking about in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, your 70s, no matter what age you are, there is so much here to help you to better understand yourself and to really make the most of the season that you're in. We talk about hormones, we talk about menopause and those substantial changes that we do go through as women. But we also talk about brain rewiring and the science backed strategies to help us to navigate those shifts and really come out on the other side, ready to embrace an even more authentic and exciting chapter ahead. And I have to say, since having this conversation, I don't think there's been a day where I haven't thought about something that Dr. Mindy shared with me. And I know you're going to have the same experience. So I want to take a minute to urge you, if you're a mom, to share this conversation with your daughter. If you're a daughter, to share this conversation with your mom. If you don't have that kind of relationship, to choose a friend or a neighbor. Because I think one of my biggest takeaways is that there's so much power in sharing knowledge with one another as women. And Dr. Mindy is such a symbol of that. So I have been counting down the days to be able to release this episode. And with that said, I don't want to wait a minute longer. So let's get into it. Dr. Mindy, I'm so thrilled to have you here on 30, Flirty, and Panicking. Thank you for making the time during what I can imagine is an extremely busy stretch for you.
Yeah. Thank you. No, I'm super excited to be here. And, I love talking about this stuff. So yes, it can be exhausting, but I love opening this conversation up that we all get to have. So thank you for having me.
I'm indebted to you because I will say, I think menopause is kind of one of these things that you dread and have fear surrounding. And I read
Yeah.
your book and it just put me at ease about what I think can be a very
Yes.
daunting time. So I'm so excited to get into everything in Age Like a Girl with you.
Mhm.
Before we
Thank
do
you.
that, really at the root of 30, Flirty, and Panicking is kind of this idea that like life throws you twists and turns and change is inevitable. And whether change is coming your way or you're creating change in your own life, kind of embracing that can actually really be a
Mhm.
superpower. And I think that that actually aligns really well with a lot of what we learn in Age Like a Girl, but also kind of underscores the importance of pivots and evolution and changing and things
Mhm.
like that. So before we get into everything, I would love to just give you an opportunity to talk a bit about your path to this place. You have a global community. You've changed so many women's lives. Back in the beginning, you were practicing in chiropractic and you've
Mhm.
done so many different things. Can you just set up for us your path to the place that we're
Yeah.
at now?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. It's not one I get to explain often. So, yeah, I was trained as a chiropractor, and what a lot of people don't realize is that at the heart of chiropractic is this understanding that the body's always healing itself, and if it's not healing itself, then there's a physical, emotional, or chemical interference. So that led me to have what I would call a lifestyle practice. I taught my patients how to eat, I taught them how to think, I taught them how to detox, move. Like everything we did in my practice for 30 years was lifestyle oriented. And at the heart of it is what I call the mama bears. It was like a practice of late 30, 40-year-old women that were trying to get themselves healthy, but also wanting to make sure their kids were healthy.
Hmm.
So they would ask me tons of questions. I took them to the grocery store, taught them how to read labels. We had recipe nights at my clinic where everybody practiced new recipes. And I started to see the power of lifestyle on these women, and I started to see like even how they were turning around and teaching their children, and then their children were making really healthy choices. So that was like the heart of what I was doing. And then from there, I should say, I was doing functional medicine before we even knew what functional medicine was. We were doing stool tests, and we were checking toxic loads, and we were doing all kinds of fun crazy things, and before we even had the functional medicine name. And one day, one of the mama bears said to me, "Hey, my friends in Wisconsin want to know what I'm learning. Is there any way you can record what you are teaching us for them. And I used to give these monthly classes. So I would do like a month on brain health or a month on thyroid health. So Facebook Live was the hot new thing at the time.
Yeah.
And so I just took Facebook Live, I put my phone up and I started recording it. Well, the next thing I know, we had hundreds of people all over the nation that were watching these monthly talks that I would give. And eventually we were like, we got to put them somewhere. So we put them onto YouTube. And one day, one of those videos went viral and it was on autophagy and how fasting stimulates your own innate detox. And my YouTube channel went from like 3,000 followers to 30,000 followers in like a couple of days. And I started to see that women wanted to learn what I was teaching. And so I just started doing video after video after video. And we're now at 1.5 million subscribers and I don't know, like 80 or 90 million views. But I really have to give it credit to the women that were like, I want to learn more. I want to help other women.
Mhm.
And they were at the heart of how this all started.
I love hearing that story. And I think
Mhm.
to your point, knowledge is power. And it was fun
Yeah.
for me to look even at the way that women respond to what you put out. I mean, there are women saying Mindy for president. It's just clear that,
Yeah.
you equipping women with the tools that they need to get the most out of their lives to feel their best in their day to day. There are so many women who are struggling or, uncomfortable or don't have access to the information that you're sharing. And obviously menopause is very much at the forefront of a lot of the work that you do. Would you be able to explain a bit about why that became such an important priority for you?
Yeah, it actually started with my own personal journey. When I hit 40, I had one focus for my health, and that was I wanted to be in the best shape of my life. So that meant that I would, put on my favorite pair of skinny jeans. I loved the number on the scale. I liked what the image that was looking back at me. It was very externally motivated.
Yeah.
Within 3 years, the first 3 years of my 40s, everything about my health changed. My moods changed, my sleep changed, I started gaining weight, but I hadn't done anything different. It's like everything just shifted. Now, you have to keep in mind this was 13 years ago. And so I went searching for what was going on with me. And this is when I discovered perimenopause, which back then, believe it or not, was not something we were talking about. Like the word perimenopause hadn't infiltrated the zeitgeist at
Yeah.
all. So I'm a lifestyle expert. I started to look at, okay, what do I need to shift? And I saw studies that were like showing me that when estrogen goes down, our whole metabolic system changed. So that's how I discovered fasting. That's how I started to look at fasting and cycling for hormones. And then I discovered eating and cycling, eating for your hormones. And with each lifestyle change I made, I started to feel better. And then we're back at the mama bears, they were all in their 40s too. And they came in and they were like, I've got a shoulder injury and it's not improving. Or I would have like a mom say to me, I'm just depressed and I don't really understand why because my kids are amazing. My husband's amazing. Like, I don't get why I'm so depressed.
Mhm.
So I kept looking deeper and deeper and deeper. And one day I found an article that changed everything for me, and it was on PubMed, which is where all the peer-reviewed journals are housed, and all the credited science. And it showed that when estrogen goes away, so does the possibility of over 12 neurochemicals. 12.
It's
And I
crazy.
was like, what? So wait, perimenopause, menopause isn't just the loss of some sex hormones. You're having this massive neurochemical shift. And so I started taking each one like dopamine, serotonin, acetylcholine, glucose, insulin, melatonin. Like I looked at each one and I started to unpack how can we use our lifestyle to bring these back into play. And so and then I just started teaching it in my clinic. I practiced it on myself. And then by then YouTube had really exploded. And so I would do these videos. If you go back and look at some of my old videos, I always say like, "Hey, this is what I just discovered. This is how used it on myself. This is how my patients are using it. Now you try it and then come back and let me know.
Yeah.
And I hired a team of people to take all of those answers and to come up with a pattern of what women were seeing during menopause. And this literally we were not talking about menopause. I put some of the findings in my book it's been out for several years, called The Menopause Reset,
Yeah.
and that those were like my initial findings, and then fasting became such a powerful tool for these women and me. And then I Age Like a Girl came because I was like, what's going on with everybody's brain? And
Yes.
so I just kept questioning and asking and testing and staying curious, and then landed here.
Well, thank you for sharing it with the rest of the world. We all could use
Thank you.
access to that information. So I want to get into it. I want to talk Age Like a Girl. Like I said, I picked it up, I got through it, and took me less than 2 full days to get through it. I
Oh, I
was
love that.
really captivated, genuinely, by what you
Thank you.
shared. First of all, the thought that menopause could actually be something positive, that there could be
Yes.
anytime you can assign purpose to something that might be challenging, it completely changes everything. So I was so grateful to have the perspective that Age Like a Girl gives us. And I only wish like my mom and my aunts and everyone who came before me could have had that in their fingers as well. But now they can. For anybody who hasn't had the privilege of reading the book yet, can you just set up in your own words what Age Like a Girl is and what this process, I guess, looked like for you?
Yeah, so two statistics haunted me as I was diving into all this research. The first was that between the ages of 45 and 55, that decade is the most common time for a woman to commit suicide.
Yeah. I was shocked.
I literally sat with that statistic and I'm like, but wait, maybe a mom, she has a career, maybe she's like, big in her community. Why would she kill herself? What is going on? And then the second one was this question of, and then this has gotten a lot of airtime recently, that 70% of divorces are initiated by women after the age of 40. So, with those two guiding lights, I was like, what is happening in this experience?
Yeah.
And the one thing I know from my training in my and all of my years of learning about the human body is that there is nothing that the human body does by mistake.
I love
Like
that.
that is huge. So think about a fever. When you have a fever, your body raises its temperature so that you can burn an infection out. So, and we could go weight gain. I've been helping so many women lose weight over the last couple of years. Weight gain, all that is your body doesn't know where to put the excess. It doesn't know where to put excess glucose or excess hormones or excess toxins. So it stored it in fat. Like everything I could explain everything to you through that lens. So I was like, why? One statistic I found on menopause was that women will live, if they're lucky, will live 42.5% of our life post reproductively. Okay, think about that for a moment. I'm like, right. So that there's a major organ system in our body that shuts down, stops working, and we go 40% longer in our life. Like men don't have that. We're the longest living species post reproductively. Like, how is this happening? And so that's when I started to look into things like the grandmother hypothesis, which is the evolutionary explanation of how, in the hunter gatherer days, when a woman stopped her reproductive system, the tribe knew she was a wise elder now. They knew that without a reproductive system, that all of the energy that was used towards releasing an egg every month actually comes back to her, and she can be a really helpful member of the tribe by foraging for food and tending to the tribe while the men were off trying to get a big animal kill. Then I went and chatted with Lisa Mosconi, who is really one of the best, or is known as like the top female brain researcher in the world. And I was like, what's the purpose of menopause? And she's like, oh, your brain rewires itself 3 times in your life in order to prepare you for the next phase of life. The first is puberty, when your hormones come in. and it rewires your brain so you can be more independent. The second one is after you deliver a baby, the brain rewires itself so you can be more intuitive because your baby doesn't talk. And the third one, which is why I'm like, we got to let all the women know, is that in perimenopause, with the decline of hormones, the brain rewires itself so that you are set up for leadership. And that is amazing. We're not teaching women that, hey, guess what? We need you now. Instead, what we're doing is teaching women don't age because you might go invisible.
Right.
And then I found this incredible feminist psychologist, Carol Gilligan, who showed that in the 1980s, when I grew up, that girls were taught that you are good, that you are worthy if you are selfless,
Hmm.
and that begins somewhere around puberty. And so then I started to see this huge trend of like all these women that are like, I don't care anymore. I'm not going to, I'm not, I don't, I'm not going to please you. I'm not going to try to fix your problems. I watched all these women change this people pleasing way.
Yeah.
And so I brought all of that teaching together to really show, and I hope it came across in the book, like you are in preparation for the next phase of your life and your brain is rewiring itself so that you can be the happiest. You can start to tell your truth. You can start to focus on yourself and you make an incredible leader. Like we all should be turning to the postmenopausal women and asking their advice right now because their brains, out of every other brain on the planet, is set up for social leadership.
Which I love. And I actually hadn't even heard of Dr. Lisa Mosconi. And I was so blown away by the findings that you shared from her work. By the time a woman is reaching menopause, this is that third change, that third leg, if you will. Can you break down a little bit about what we're seeing in the brain and how it's changing things for women in life? Because I think there are so many that feel crazy when they
Mhm.
are forgetful or are just experiencing changes that they can't explain.
Yeah, oh, it's such a good question. So, what I learned from Lisa, and I think is something that actually encouraged me to go research deeper,
Mhm.
is that what happens when our hormones come in, so at 13, is that we start to move to what we call a cross referenced or relational brain. So, women have a bigger corpus callosum in their brain. The corpus callosum is the highway between the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. And when we go in through puberty and estrogen comes in, all of a sudden that highway gets fully formed, and your right hemisphere and left hemisphere is connected in every single decision you make. What this looks like is this looks like when we women who are beyond puberty, not, and we'll talk about menopause here in a second, what happens is we make decisions using both sides of our brain, which means sometimes we're going to take your opinion into consideration because we are using that right hemisphere, which is a relational hemisphere. So when we're looking at this cross reference brain, what Lisa said is that when we go through menopause and we lose estrogen, that cross referenced relational brain stops. And now we become more like men. I mean, I hate to make it like that, but it's really men have a lateralized brain.
Right.
They are either in their logical side, their left brain, or they are in their right side, their creative brain, but they don't use both hemispheres at the same time. This is what happens to women when we go through menopause is we drop the relational brain, which might sound horrible, but that is your get out of jail free card because all of a sudden you do not care what everybody thinks of you. You don't want to fix everybody's problem. You don't want to put your needs last.
Mhm.
You actually change into a brain that knows better than ever how to take care of yourself and put your needs first. And that was her discovery, was that this brain change actually will now change your behaviors and how you show up in every single part of your life.
And there's so much freedom to be found in that and in that thought, and I'm like, how do I expedite that process? The women
Right.
going through menopause I probably want to squeeze me. But you talk about during this change, kind of the effects that these changes have on like our mood molecules, the way that they affect the way that we're feeling at that time. Can you break that down a little bit for us?
Yeah, so this study that I found early on showed that estrogen stimulated over 12 different neurochemicals. I call them the girl gang just because I like to make it, I think we
I
should
love
make it fun.
that. Yeah,
It's like
totally.
estrogen. Think of estrogen like the popular girl in high school that like sat down at the lunch table, and then all her little posse of girls followed her and sat next to her, and whatever she wore they wore, whatever she ate they ate, whatever she thought was cool all the other girls thought was cool. Okay, so estrogen has the same kind of pack, and this pack is dopamine, serotonin, glutamate, GABA, acetylcholine, BDNF, oxytocin, glucose, insulin, and melatonin. So there are a lot of these molecules that estrogen actually stimulated.
Right.
So at 35, and especially since you have a younger audience, I want to point out that at 35, progesterone starts to decline. And what the first feeling you might have is irritability or maybe some trouble sleeping. And this is because progesterone stimulated a neurotransmitter called GABA. And GABA is what calms us. By 40, now you've got progesterone still going down and estrogen goes on a wild ride. One day she's super high, the next day she's like completely low, then she's high, then she's low. So this is why any woman in her perimenopausal years is like one day she's happy and the next day she's like, why are you chewing so loud? Why are you looking at me that way? I mean, I remember for me, when I was in the pandemic, when I was in that during that time, and my son was downstairs eating cereal at 8 o'clock at night, and all I could hear was his crunch, 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 crunch. And I had to come all the way from my bedroom down to the kitchen and be like, "You have to stop chewing so loud." Okay, that's these hormones changing. So what I wanted to bring forward in this book was that you are losing a massive amount of neurochemicals. And unfortunately, right now, the zeitgeist is saying you don't have to suffer, you can just go on HRT. But it is not that simple. Now, some women will go on HRT and they'll tell you it was amazing, but I've talked to hundreds of thousands of women, and that is not every woman has a very different experience.
Yeah.
So, what I brought forward in that part two was if you understand this girl gang and you understand the activities that will stimulate these neurochemicals, you don't have to sit and be lacking motivation and have anxiety and have depression and have memory loss. Like that isn't optional. That is an optional menopause experience. You can actually use your lifestyle to adjust to this neurochemical change.
And this was the best news ever. I think anytime that there's change, feeling like you have some sense of control can very much help. And
Oh yeah.
the way that you break this down, it makes it very clear that there are things that we can do in various areas of life that can help with this transition and through this shift. Can we get into some of those things?
Well, let's start with in part two, I broke it down according to mood, memory, sleep, connection, all of that. But I think one of my favorite molecules, well, it should be all of our favorite molecules, is dopamine.
Yes.
So we talk a lot about how we're in a dopamine saturated world, but that's a superficial dopamine. I go to my phone, I'm getting dopamine hits, but I can put my phone down and then I don't have to engage in that dopamine experience. But for the menopausal woman, what happens is as dopamine goes down, so does her motivation.
Hmm.
So all of a sudden, she doesn't want to work out. All of a sudden, she doesn't care about maybe cleaning the house the same way she did. She might not have the motivation to lose the weight that she's gaining through menopause.
Hmm.
And if you square that with how we treat our aging women, you start to see that women, no, more than men, are really fearful of being tossed aside as they age.
Yeah.
And if you were a woman who dedicated your life to your family and then your kids grew up, and now they're off at college. You're sitting at home and you need a new purpose. You need some kind of purpose. So purpose is how we bring dopamine back. If we could take the billions of women that are in menopause and like give them the purpose of caring for the planet, we wouldn't be in such a mess, the mess that we are in, not just in our country, but worldwide.
Mhm.
Like, this is the point of the wise elder, is that we were meant to go into a more purposeful place within our lives. So if your purpose was raising your children, now let's find another purpose. Maybe your purpose is you're going to learn how to draw, or maybe you're going to learn a new language. But learning something new, maybe you're going to go into your church and you're going to become, volunteer more often. But purpose for women becomes so important. The other part of dopamine that's really interesting is novelty. Dopamine likes new, things that are kind of new and unexpected. But a lot of women, when they get into that perimenopausal years, they're, going to the same gym, driving in the same direction, eating the same foods, doing the same thing, wearing the same clothes. That is going to kill you as you go through this perimenopausal experience. You every day, it would benefit you to like stand up and be like, okay, what is going to feel meaningful to me today? And how can I mix my routine up? How do I change things up? And then you're inviting dopamine back into your life. Your body will make dopamine in that experience.
Yeah. It's funny, as I was reading that, and you provide like purpose, you know, purpose promoting activities and things like that that women can look to in the book. I haven't experienced menopause yet and I'm not perimenopausal, but through times of change in my life or times that have been trickier, I've actually found that exactly those two things have helped me already. So I can imagine it's magnified in that next stage. When you look back at your life, do you see that at all? And
Yeah.
those have been like two really big anchors for me at a unique time in my own life.
Yeah, because so I'm 56 now, and I look back and I see certain things. So, for example, I was in practice for 30 years,
Yeah.
and about 23 years in, I was pretty bored. And hopefully my ex patients are listening. Like, I loved the people, but I wasn't challenged by it anymore.
Right.
So I then actually started doing so much detox work and hormone balancing, and I would tell people I want the hardest cases. Like, I had this 28-year-old who couldn't eat any food. She had no energy. She couldn't think straight. I'm like, great, let's work with her. Like,
Yeah.
I wanted really difficult cases because I was trying to get the new challenge, the new thing to give me that dopamine hit. So I would say that routine and is the enemy of for it's like the enemy for perimenopause. That routine, that same, you're going to see that loss of dopamine much easier, which is why what you said is so cool. Like, I'm sorry you have heartbreak, but what you did is you took it and you turned it into purpose. And then now you're in purpose, and now you've got a podcast. Okay, that's new, it's exciting. And then I'm sure you've hit levels where the podcast, okay, I know how to do it all now. So then maybe you start to do a video, you put it on YouTube, or you start to, maybe do solo episodes. Like, the growth is so important, and changing your environment is so important. And so for me, that's what I noticed. And then I would say the most current and interesting thing for me, I had a really interesting, when my kids left the house. Whew, empty nesting is a very startling experience.
Yeah. It's a big
And
one.
yeah, and my husband and I were walking around the house just feeling kind of blah, and like, oh, we were the house that everybody came to. And it was like the energy got sucked out of the house.
Right.
So I was like, "We're gonna move. Let's go."
Yeah.
And so we moved down to LA, and I'm like, where I grew up, and then all of a sudden everything was exciting again. I had new stores to go to. I had new friends, or new old friends I was reconnecting. My husband and our marriage was like getting new sparks because we were in a
Yeah.
new environment. So for myself, that's where I saw it, is anytime I hit a stuck spot. Whereas,
Mhm.
like, why am I depressed? Why am I anxious? Why do I feel boredom? I'm like, okay, what do I need to mix up? Now that was a dramatic thing, but
Right.
it really we it's almost like I don't know if you feel like this. I feel like we have some kind of understanding we're going to hit the cruise control button at some point in life. We're just going to cruise along and it's all going to be good. That is the death of a menopausal woman. We
Yeah.
were meant to change and expand and think different. There's so many ways you can reinvent yourself through this process, which also is exciting.
I love that. And I actually think it'll, in a weird way, almost the opposite has been helpful for me to think about since reading the book too, where I'm like, I want to live. I want to do all of the things. And I like
Mhm.
my things that make me feel safe. I have my home base and all that. But like, I feel like there's so much I want to do. And I think there's this looming thought for women, particularly, I think, in their 30s, of like, we're in a race to get everything done. Like, timeline
Mm.
is very much at the
Mm.
forefront of your mind because you have to, you have to fall in love and meet the person and have the family and build your career and get everything done because there have been these seeds planted that things end. There's a cutoff point to life. And this book really, really reframes that there's like a whole next chapter where things,
Yep.
where it really can get greater later.
Yeah.
And it really helped me to think about that because my worst fear actually, well, I like the idea of a cruise control at chapters. Like, I'm like, it'd be nice to have
It
and
would be nice. I agree. I agree.
like the idea that I would just like wake up at 50 or 55 or 60 and be like, all right, I'm gonna ride this thing out until the end out is would be like devastating to me. So I loved the lens through which this has allowed me to look at that kind of that next chapter and how it just might be for me. So
It's a really good point. You bring a really good point up because I think and we've all been fed the the lie of the white picket fence and
yeah,
the marriage and the two children and the dog and like I remember I'm married. I have a boy and a girl.
yeah,
They're grown now, and I remember at like my mid 30s going to my mom and going, okay, I checked I did it all. I did it. I got the career, I got the family, I got the house. Like, what do I do now?
yeah,
And she was like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "You taught me to do all these things." And then she said to me, "I didn't teach you that." And I realized, no, the culture taught me that race you're talking about. And then one day you realize you've been racing to accumulate all these things. You can't even sit on the couch anymore
right,
because you've been trying to check so many boxes. And
right.
what happens is your brain rewires itself through perimenopause is that all of a sudden you're like, this is bullshit. I can't do this anymore. Like, I'm gonna start doing things that are fun, maybe a little risky. I'm gonna try to like I've seen some of my friends completely change the way they dress, or you don't have to blow your life up, but you get the opportunity to finally do life on your terms, and all that box checking all of a sudden is like, who cares?
Yeah. I love
It's
hearing that from
amazing.
you. I do. My friends make fun of me because when we're like at a wedding or really anywhere, I'm the person in the corner, like talking to the 65-year-old woman because I'm just like, there's so much
Yeah.
wisdom to be shared. And, or the 40-year-old, anybody who's lived a little bit more experience than I have.
Yeah.
How has life gotten greater in this chapter for you in ways that, like, in your 30s, you wouldn't have even thought of?
Yeah, well, so I'll tell you a very intimate story. When I was 37, I took my first vacation from my practice, and my kids were in preschool and first grade. And my husband and another set of couples, we went down to Cabo San Lucas, and we were like our first adult vacation
Yeah.
away from the kids. And we went snorkeling, and I swam into a pile of Portuguese man o' war, which is the deadliest jellyfish, or one of the deadliest jellyfish on the planet. It wrapped completely around me, and I had a near death experience. I went down the tunnel. I had the life review. Like, it was incredibly traumatic. And when I came out of that, I thought, I must have been left for a reason. Like, why didn't I die that day?
Yeah.
And what I translated that into was I was alive, I stayed alive for my family. So from 37 till right now, I would say in the last year, my whole life has been dedicated to my work and to my family.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden my work changed and my kids grew up, And I write about this in the book that I got to a point where I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I actually went into therapy, and my therapist said to me, well, Mindy, you can do anything you want to do right now. What do you want to do? And I couldn't answer that question because my whole life had been built around serving everybody else.
Right.
And so all of a sudden, I mean, it took me about a year of what do I want to do? What do I want to do? And so here I sit now at 56 years old. I've taken up surfing. I'm in Santa Cruz,
Saw that.
California.
You
I
cracked
go with I know, thank you. I go with my sweet friend Marisol, who's 52. She picks me up every morning. We go down to the ocean. I don't have to make kids lunches. I don't have to go off to a clinic. I rearranged my whole work schedule to be in the afternoon so that I could go into the water every morning with this incredible community of people and do this really fun sport. That I've never done in my whole life. I've
Yeah.
never prioritized play like that ever. But with my menopausal brain, it's become so much easier to start putting yourself first.
That's the light at the end of the tunnel, I feel like, for so many women who are going through it right now. And your book might actually be the first time that they're hearing and seeing evidence of that,
Yeah.
which,
Yeah.
is a really big deal. For the woman who's in the throes of menopause right now, like just toughing it out, struggling, what are like the three top tools? I know that that's
Yeah.
probably nearly impossible, but what are three really important tools that you think each woman going through that should tap into or at least explore tapping into?
Yeah, it's actually not that hard and to narrow it to 3 because we have to make this simple. We've health is I don't know how you feel, but like health has gotten so confusing.
Hmm.
Like, oh wait, now I got to count protein at every meal. Oh wait, I've got to get I need to get not just an estrogen patch, but I need to put testosterone pellets in my butt. Oh wait, you want me to prioritize sleep, but I can't sleep at all. Like the amount of have tos that have been yucked on women is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I want to make it simple. The most important thing you can do, either going into menopause or if you're in the throes of perimenopause, is to get your metabolic system in order. You've got, and the way you know if your metabolic system is in order is you want to look at your blood work at one specific marker, and it's hemoglobin A1C. This tells you how insulin sensitive you are. If you are insulin sensitive, meaning that you can eat food and use the glucose from the breakdown of food, your menopausal symptoms will be so much easier. And I have a whole chapter on it in the book. I've talked about it on, I have so many videos I'm doing on it right now on YouTube. Like that is your first step. Clean up your metabolic system. Now that leads to, okay, well, how do you clean up your metabolic system? That too is not that difficult. You get off the ultra processed foods. If it was made in a lab, you don't want it. If it
Hmm.
has an ingredient you can't pronounce, don't eat it. And just go back to eating the food that nature provided for us. So go back to if you eat meat that and try to eat grass-fed, organic meat that hasn't been pumped full of antibiotics and growth hormone and all of those kind of things.
Right.
Legumes are incredible. Tubers like sweet potatoes and jicama and sunchokes. Tons of vegetables and fruit. Just eat like what the earth provided us.
Right.
And then I talk in the book about ketones. The menopausal brain works off of two fuel sources. One is glucose from food, and the other is ketones from burning fat. As you move through the menopausal experience, you're not going to your brain won't use glucose as well. So your get out of jail free card for your brain symptoms is learn how to make a ketone. And in the book, I go through 4 ways. The easiest way I think is to start learning how to fast. And I'm not talking 3-day water fast. Like a 13 to 15-hour fast will give you a dose of ketones every day, and it will power your brain back up. I think that has to be number one. That if we could take every 40-year-old and we could be like, okay, we're just going to look at hemoglobin A1C and we're going to get that clear. I honestly think all these menopausal symptoms would dramatically decrease because that's what we see in our community. So
Yeah.
that's step number one for sure.
Done. Check.
Great. Okay. Step number two. This is another interesting one. You're going to need to learn about your parasympathetic nervous system. That is your rest and digest nervous system. And that is the nervous system that lets you just relax. And most women are stuck in some kind of nervous system dysregulation. They're stuck in sympathetic. They're go, 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 doers, 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 rushing woman. When you hit 40, start scheduling downtime on your calendar. Start putting into your calendar the moments that you're going to take care of you. Even if you have a family, even if you have a big important job, you've got to put on your calendar things that are just for you. So for me, in my 40s, I stopped seeing patients at noon on Friday. And my kids didn't come home till 3 or 4
Hmm.
on Friday. So I had this 3 to 4 hour chunk that was just mine.
Right.
Some days I'd go work out, some days I'd come home and sit on the couch and binge watch a Netflix series. But I started to put into my calendar these moments that were just for me.
Right.
And there's so many women aren't doing that. So you're nervous if you go in. Here's another thing to know is that when your ovaries stop making sex hormones, they have to hand the job of sex hormones over to another organ. So they hand it over to your adrenal glands. If your adrenals are maxed out, what's going to happen is your adrenals are going to be like, I can't make estrogen. I'm not going to make progesterone. I'm over here running from a tiger because I got to keep making cortisol so I could keep up with this fast paced, rushing woman lifestyle.
Yeah. And I think that's something that's so hard. And I think kind of the
So
common
hard.
theme throughout our
Yeah.
conversation is that women have a very hard time, whether it's caring for others or whatever our responsibilities are, just taking a beat. Is there any particular guideline on how much rest women should be calculating in? Or is it a Friday afternoon for you might
Yeah.
be, 8 hours spread throughout a week for someone else? Is it kind of case by case, whatever feels like it allows you to reset?
Yeah, I've done a lot of research on burnout because I was self-diagnosing my
Yeah.
I was diagnosing myself for many years.
Yeah.
There's no through like definition of like this is what burnout is, so you should stop working, or this is how much time you should take off. But I did start to realize that burnout, whether it's as a mom, as a wife, in your job, as a woman in the world, happens more quickly when we become resentful.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do we become resentful? And the way we become resentful is when we start saying yes to things that we really want to say no to.
Hmm.
Right? So I started telling like my husband, no, I'm not going out to dinner with those people. I'm not going to the work function. I started telling my girlfriends like, hey, if we can go out, but can we go out a little bit earlier? I'm not staying up till midnight.
Yeah.
Like when you start standing up for yourself and doing what you want to do and not like, "Oh, I guess I should do that." And then the resentment goes away. And when the resentment goes away, the burnout tends to improve. And your time off, like we were talking about, you just don't need as much. You'll recharge really quickly.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's implementing boundaries really and listening to yourself,
Right.
which can be a very
Yeah.
tricky thing to do, but that makes
Yeah.
complete sense that that would contribute to how rested you feel.
Yeah. So I think there's like yes, I watched a lot of my friends who were like, "Oh, I can't work out. I got to help my child with their homework or I got to drive them here." There's so many ways that we betray ourselves and we put everybody's need ahead of our own. So just by sitting on the couch and watching a Netflix series when nobody's around, it's like a form of rebellion.
Yeah,
I talk about this in the book
yeah,
that we
you
need
do.
little mini forms of rebellion. Like,
I love
forget it. I'm gonna at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I'll tell you what I binge watched when I was in my 40s. I would always binge watch Scandal,
the
and
best,
I would. It was the best. There was like so
best.
many seasons of it,
I
and I
still
was
watch
like,
it when I need a release sometimes. I'm like, where's Olivia?
yeah, I know. It's so funny. I you told my friends I was so into Scandal. I was like, I think Olivia Pope would love me. I think we would be good friends.
No
And
question.
and my friends are like, "She's a fictitious character, Mindy." Like,
No,
I
she's not.
know.
No, she's not.
Don't tell me that. Yes.
She's
But if you actually take a microscope to your life you start to see that there's so much we do that we don't wanna do. But maybe we do it because we want to, like, feel worthy. So if somebody says, let's use here's another good example that your listeners might go through. I was the mom at my kids' school where if they were like, who would like to bring the snack tomorrow, or who would like to stay after and help the teacher, and all these women would raise their hand and I would look the other way. I was like, no, this isn't my thing.
not for me.
But yeah, but part of that was because I was at a point where I was guarding my downtime. I was
Mhm.
like, I've got a full-time job. I want to be the best for my kids. I don't need the teacher to tell me how wonderful I am because I stayed afterwards and reorganized her classroom.
Yeah,
I need to make sure I take care of myself so I can be the best for my family and for my work.
right.
And I think we do as women so often we're like, I'm going to do all these amazing things for other people and they're going to say amazing things to me and then I'm going to feel good about myself. How about you just feel good about yourself?
Yeah.
Why don't you like I had a friend who said to me just as little as 2 years ago. She said, "Mindy, you know what shocks me about you is that you are so fearful of disappointing people, but you don't care about disappointing yourself." It was like a really good friend and I thought I told her, I was like, "Thank you. You're right." So in those 40-year-old years, what can you do to start to take pieces of your life back and do things just because you want to do them or do them because they're pleasure filled, but there's no like sitting on the couch is not like anybody's going to be like, "Wow, you're sitting on the couch. Aren't you amazing?"
Yeah,
So we've got to start doing things for ourselves, and that will really, really help the menopausal journey.
that makes sense. It's funny. I'm like many women where I struggle very much. And this year I've kind of had to almost like this sounds insane. Listeners are gonna be writing in, like checking on me, but almost thinking of myself as like my younger self a little bit. Like, did I eat
Yeah,
a nutrient today? Right? Like,
yeah,
did I move my body? Did I do the things that we're always
yeah.
taught? One would if it was somebody else, I would make sure it happened. And I think that like reframing while it shouldn't be necessary was very helpful to me.
You know what part I wrote the title's Age Like a Girl because I had Fast Like a Girl and Eat Like a it's kinda on brand.
Yeah.
But as I wrote the book, I started to realize actually Age Like a Girl also means how are you taking care of that little girl?
Yes.
And, I love there's a quote out there and I should get it down a little more clearly, but it's something like, "You get to be the woman that your little girl always needed
Yes.
protection." That little girl who needed protection, that needed love, that needed to be told whatever she needed to be told, you
Yeah.
get to be her now, and you get to tell that little girl. So, I'll give you an example. I just turned 56 last Wednesday, and we
Happy
moved into
belated.
it. Yeah, thank you. We moved into, a new house, and the house has a very steep driveway, and when we moved in, I turned to my husband, and I was like, "You know what I wanna do on my 56th birthday?" And he's like, "What?" I said, "I'm gonna get a big wheel." Do you remember those big wheels when we were kids?
Yes.
And I'm going down this driveway, and I'm gonna spin out at the end of the driveway. And he was like, "Are you crazy? Are you gonna wear a helmet? Are you gonna hurt the driveway? Big wheel won't fit you?" So I ordered a big wheel and I got on it on my 56th birthday and I went all the way down the driveway and spun out. And it was like just a moment of, I want to be a little girl again. That little girl wants to play now.
Yes. 100%. I love that so
Right.
much. We all need to take a minute and tap into that little girl, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't know how you feel, but somewhere along the line, life got really serious.
I know. You're so right. We have to find that levity. We need to remember
Yeah.
it's about having fun. Okay, so we're resting, we're prioritizing boundaries. What else are we doing?
There's some other really interesting things. Workouts at 40, workouts need to change. And I would say in our 20s and our 30s, we're very focused on the number on the scale and we're focused on whatever workout's going to make us look the best. But at 40, you need to start thinking about workout different. Yes, we still want you to look good, but I want you to function well. So in my practice, I saw all these women come in with injuries that would never go away because they were running Spartan races and CrossFitting and doing all these extreme sports they did in their 20s and 30s. But two members of estrogen's girl gang are collagen and creatine. So when those two change, you're dealing with joints that don't have as much lubrication.
Yeah.
So every run, every jump, all of that is wearing your joints down. So in the book, I talk about really looking at the different types of exercise. And the first thing you've got to do is exercise variation. So if you like to run, just make sure you throw in some yoga.
Mhm.
Make sure you throw in some weightlifting. Like you can't do that same exercise over and over again, or you're most likely going to end up with some kind of injury. And when injuries happen in your perimenopausal years, if you're not careful, they'll become chronic.
Right.
So we've got to get you varying the types of exercise. In the back of the book, I put like protocols of what this might look like on a weekly basis.
Yeah, there's literally a
So
guide there for anyone who needs
eh,
it.
thank you. Yeah, I was like, how do I make how do I the last thing I want to do is give information that women are like, well, that's interesting, but I don't know what that looks like in action.
Yes,
So
nice and digestible, which I think
yeah.
especially at a time like this for anyone who's going through it or
Mm,
approaching it, when you do
yeah.
have all this going on with your mind and you are being pulled in a million different directions, it's extremely helpful. And I don't want to rush ahead, but you include in the book an appendix specifically for the men out there. Why is it so important that we include the men in the conversation?
Yeah. Well, so I get this question a lot, and I will say if it's to the man, you need to understand this process. Um, I'm just gonna be frank, or you might lose her.
Yeah.
Like you need to be if you are involved in the process in this metamorphosis with her, and you're standing by her side and supporting her, the chance of you coming out into a better marriage, a better relationship on the other side is really likely.
Yeah.
But what a lot of men are doing, and I will tell you that a lot of my friends got divorced through their menopause experience.
Yeah.
And two of my friends specifically who had very successful husbands, had
Yep.
beautiful lives, and they just wanted their husband to understand this change that they were going through, and both husbands were like, you're amazing, our life is amazing, why would you change? And they were very frustrated at their change, and these two beautiful women were like, I need to do something different, which is going to affect your life. And these two men didn't listen. And eventually, the only way these women could step into their own new identity and reinvent themselves was to leave them.
Yeah.
I don't think that's necessary. I think that I'll tell you what my husband and I have done is,
Please.
yeah, going into therapy helped, but also having different conversations. And I heard Esther Perel say that you will fall in love as an adult. You will fall in love 2 to 3 times in your adult life.
Mhm.
For some of us, that will be with 2 to 3 different people. For others of us, that will be with the same person. So my husband and I started categorizing our marriage. We had before kids was marriage 1.0. When we had kids, that's marriage 2.0. And now the way we talk is we are inventing marriage 3.0. So in the book, I wanted to give the men an opportunity to stand up and join us in this journey and get to know us in a new way. One of the kindest things my husband ever said to me in the darkest time of my perimenopausal years was, I want to understand what you're discovering about yourself. I want to understand this new person that you're becoming.
Yeah.
So when I shared that story with my community, so many women were like, can you tell my husband that? Can you tell my boss that? Can you tell my son that? Can you tell the men in my life?" Which is why I wrote an appendix to men, and I wrote it to the men.
Yeah.
So all women have to do is hand the book to the men in their life and say, "Can you read this chapter so we can get on the same page?"
Right. And I think that that's a very, even if you've been married for 20 or 30 years, there are women who will struggle deeply with trying to start that conversation. And
Yeah,
to
I'm
have this
sure.
as a tool is such a gift beyond husbands, right? Like I think this book made me think about when I was like a teenager and my poor mother was going through this. Never said
Yeah,
who, I would have had no idea. But just for those of us who love somebody who is going through menopause,
yeah.
like how should we show up and support women through this transition?
So the first thing is understand that her behavior may be erratic. And that is not personal, that is not even circumstantial. Any woman who has gone through the process will tell you that there are days you wake up and you cry and you don't know why. You're just crying.
Yeah.
Or there's days that the anger, the rage that comes out of you is just ginormous. And so if you are on the receiving end of that, if you're around a woman going through that, just understanding that it's temporary and that it's not personal, and then asking her, "How can I support you? How can I help you in this process?" would be amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
that would be incredible. I did a lot of explaining to people like, I'm not handling stress as well as I used to. Or like I went to my parents and I was just like, I don't know, nothing in life is really making me happy, but I'm going to find my groove. I just really lost my groove. So, if you are on the other side of that and you are watching this woman change, just support her, lift her up, be patient with her, and she will come out the other side a better person, I promise it. And if she's on the other side, I mean, this is something I wrote about in the book was um, the power of storytelling
Yeah.
and acetylcholine, which is the neurotransmitter that comes in with storytelling.
Yeah.
And I started to think of my 86-year-old mom differently. I'm like, God, she tells me the same story. I just was with her this weekend. And once again, we go down the same story. And God love her. Every time she tells me the story, she thinks she's telling it to me for the first time.
Right.
So I used to say, Mom, no, like you've already told me that story. Stop telling me that. And since I started to understand the power of recall, how important it is for an aging woman to have to dip into her hippocampus and tell you a story that happened 40 years ago, and how that produces this neurotransmitter called acetylcholine, I actually started to look at my mom's repetitive stories as actually something that was keeping her mentally sharp and free of dementia and Alzheimer's. And now I can hear the story. Sometimes I'll even ask a new twist, but I just listen, knowing it's supporting her brain health.
Yeah. Yeah, big time. I just told you I'm somebody who loves to corner the wiser woman in a
Yeah.
wedding or whatever, but it made me think about the fact that I haven't sat down and asked my own mother, who I absolutely love and
Oh.
adore, who's in her early 60s, like so many questions I would love to ask. So it's motivated me. Next time I go home, she's not going to be able to escape. I'm going to be asking her all the
That
questions.
You know what? I tell a story in the book about a good friend who decided to write a memoir.
Mhm.
And she only wanted to write the memoir because she wanted to leave something for her children. I mean, she's my age, so it's not like she's planning on dying anytime
Yeah.
soon. But she got so much for her own mental health through that process. So there are like, I feel like there's journals that you're like that are like ask your mom certain questions about her life.
I kid you not, I ordered it.
Oh, you did?
I went on
Yay!
Amazon and ordered it. I was like, I mean, I have so many questions when I sit and think about it, but like, it'll be a fun activity. I really,
Yes.
like, I guess I didn't know that. I didn't know the value that came with storytelling in that way. So I really appreciated learning that.
Right. Yeah, it's the little things we do every day that build a brain that is has great memory and happiness and can problem solve. Like somehow we've just as a culture been like, "Oh shit, I hope you don't get Alzheimer's," as opposed to, "Wait, there's all these things you can do to not get Alzheimer's, and I can support you in that."
Right. I love this. Okay. I could go on truly forever. Among my parting questions, if you could go back and tell your 30 something year old self something about the journey that was yet
Mm,
ahead, or even if you're just imparting a message to 30 something year olds now about maybe anything that we can do to try to set ourselves up for success, as we
yeah.
kind of near that chapter, what would you want? people to take?
It's a beautiful question, and thank you for asking it. Get Start loving yourself. Start making yourself a priority. Get to know what you want outside of the demands of a family, a marriage, a career. Like, don't wait till you're 55 years old to have your therapist ask you, "What do you want?" And then to realize you don't know what you want. Like little things, like when you go to make dinner, don't think, "What does my husband and my kids want?" Why don't you think, "What I want?" Or when you go to say yes, make sure you really mean yes and not no. Like, start to set that up now. And then what's going to happen and is when you get into those menopausal years, they're going to be so much easier. I've actually thought a lot about the rage of menopause. And I'm curious if the rage is women that are like, I am done doing it for everybody else. And I have some anger that I need to process on how I have given my whole life over to everybody else.
Yeah.
I would really my parting line and my wish for all 30-year-olds as they start to approach those perimenopausal years is fall in love with yourself and love yourself despite the number on the scale. Stop looking at the blemishes in the mirror. Stop trying to please everybody so you can feel worthy. Feel worthy because you are congruent with you. That is the most important thing you can do.
I love that answer. Thank you. It's game changing. I think you're, this the stories in the book and the research in the book is correct that it is. It starts really young where you start to evaluate what everyone
Yeah.
else is thinking
Yeah.
about at once. And if we can just keep that, top of mind and start to look through life in that, via that lens, it will change things for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard at first. It's not easy.
Yeah.
I had, I'll tell you a story that I had one of my best friends from high school. I reconnected with her a couple of years ago, and she looked gorgeous. She was like not a wrinkle on her face. She was super thin, and I'm like, "What are you doing? Why do you look so gorgeous?" And so then she told me all the plastic surgery she was having, and I said to her, "Why? Like, why? That sounds painful. That sounds expensive. Like, what is motivating you to do that?" And she said to me, "Well, when you go and you show up somewhere, what people say to you all the time is, 'Oh my God, you look so good.'"
Mm,
And I said, "Okay, what does that do for you when people tell you you look good?" And she's like, "I don't know." I'm like, "Maybe I feel good about myself." I was like, "Okay. Could you feel good about yourself without other people validating how you look?" Because I will tell you that what is the greatest compliment anybody could ever give me is not that I look good. The greatest compliment anybody could ever give me, and it's one that I get often, which is really sweet, is people say, "I love your energy."
yeah.
I'd rather be applauded for my energy than for looking a certain way
Yeah.
because I can control my energy. I love like I'm really enjoying this conversation with you. I
Like,
love these interactions. To me, that's the pulse of life, not that I spent an hour trying to get dolled up for this interview
yeah.
so that you and your audience go, "Oh my God, she's so pretty." I don't care.
Right.
I want to have human connection and interactions with other humans where something other than my external look is validated. Yet that is what we have been taught is if you look good, you will be loved.
Hmm.
And I want women to love themselves despite how they look or what they think of themselves. If every woman walked around with the confidence of, I just love being me, we would, how much money anti-aging and the weight loss industry would lose?
Yeah.
And you know how many women would spare themselves of falling into the arms of a narcissist? Or even younger, how many women wouldn't put themselves in precarious places? Like, we have to start loving ourselves.
Yeah.
And the sooner we do that, the more we are going to enjoy this aging ride.
Right. And to your point, people are going to leave this conversation with an entire toolkit that you've just shared with them. Versus if they were showing up because they wanted to look at the two of us, they would see us
Yeah.
in that moment and that would be the end of that.
Yeah. And you know what they would do, Kelsey? This is what we do as women. We go, "Oh my god, like, she doesn't have any wrinkles, but I have wrinkles. Oh, shoot." And then we start shaming ourselves and guilting ourselves.
You're
"Oh my
right.
god," like, you want like, in the morning, you could be like, "I feel so thin today," and then you go to some other woman who's thinner than you, and you're like, "Oh,
Right.
no, I don't feel" like, we have to stop that. We have to stop that. We're only harming ourselves in that kind of thought process.
Yeah. It starts with us. And I think this kind of takes us back, but that's something that we can control. That's something that we can work on,
That's it. That's
right?
right. That's right. And that's the whole point of, like, all of my books, but especially this book,
Yeah.
is you can age the way you wanna age. You are not a victim to this. You
Right.
have so many options. You just have to start with the intention and the clarity. Like, if I was a 35-year-old listening to this podcast, I would read the book. You read Fast Like a Girl and Eat Like a Girl if you haven't. I'm not saying that because they're my books, but read them and then ask yourself, what kind of menopausal experience do I want? We are not making that question available to women. We are scaring them. We are telling them, get ready. This is going to be a horrible ride. We are like shaming them. Like, you get to decide what the journey looks like. So inform yourself so that journey can be exactly how you want it to be.
Drop the mic. You hold the pen and writing your next chapter, right?
That's right. Exactly. You hold the pen. I love that. You hold the pen and writing your next chapter. Absolutely. Yeah,
Thank
it's
you
beautiful.
for screaming that from the rooftops in this book. For anybody who doesn't already have it, they need to run. In the show notes, we'll have all the links to get Age Like a Girl. And I'm so grateful to you, Dr. Mindy, for taking the time to chat with me today. I know how busy you
Thank
are,
you.
and I'm so grateful for your time.
Thank
So
you,
thank
Kelsey.
you.
Yeah, thank you. No, I've really enjoyed this conversation, and you're a great interviewer, by the way. I've been interviewed a lot, and
That's so
yeah, you
kind.
yeah. So know that about yourself,
Thank you
because
for saying that.
yeah, your questions have been poignant and allowed me to express my heart more fully. So I appreciate that. And yeah, I just want everybody. I think as women, we need to come together. We're on the same team. We're all on the same team,
Yes.
and we need to support each other and lift each other up. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm Dr. Mindy Pelz, and I hope listeners leave this conversation feeling 30, flirty, and empowered.